The first time the phone rang from room 214, I thought someone was messing with me. Not because the motel was empty, because room 214 didn't exist, or at least it wasn't supposed to. I know how that sounds. If you're imagining some abandoned wing hidden behind a wall or an old room boarded shut after a murder, forget it. I've heard every ghost story people tell about desert motels along old highways. Most of them are nonsense tourists repeat because they're bored driving through New Mexico. This wasn't one of those stories. This happened to me, and I still wake up at exactly 2:14 every morning because somewhere, something is still waiting for me to answer its call. The Desert Crest Motel sat 20 miles outside Tucumcari, where the old stretch of Route 66 disappeared into miles of empty desert. During the day, it looked tired but harmless. Sun-bleached stucco walls, faded turquoise doors, an old neon vacancy sign that buzzed louder than it glowed. At night, everything changed. The highway became silent, not quiet. Silent. No birds, no insects. Even the wind seemed afraid to cross the parking lot after midnight. I worked the night shift because it paid $2 more an hour than the day crew. My name's Ethan. I was 28, recently divorced, drowning in debt, and desperate enough to spend 8-hour shifts alone in a motel where the nearest gas station was 15 minutes away. Most nights were predictable. Truck drivers, family passing through Arizona, an exhausted couple headed to Albuquerque, check in, hand over the key, refill the coffee, repeat. The manager, Carl, had trained me in less than an hour. If anyone asks for room 214, he'd said without looking up from his paperwork, tell them we don't have one. I laughed. He didn't. People actually ask? Sometimes. Why? They're confused. That was the end of the conversation. At the time, I thought he was just another burned-out motel owner who enjoyed messing with new employees. Until my third night. It was 2:14 a.m. The lobby television had lost its signal hours earlier, filling the room with gray static. I was halfway through a stale cup of coffee when the front desk phone rang. One ring. 2, 3. I answered. Desert Crest, this is Ethan. Silence. Not breathing, not static, just nothing. Then a voice. Calm, soft, impossible to tell if it belonged to a man or woman. Would you transfer me to room 214? I frowned. I'm sorry, we don't have. The line clicked dead. Caller ID displayed 3 numbers, 214. Not an area code, not an extension, just 214. I stared at the screen until it reset. The phone rang again before I could put the receiver down. 214. This isn't funny. You answered. Same voice, perfectly calm, no emotion. I asked to be transferred. We don't have a room 214. You did. I work here. You do now. Something cold settled into my stomach. The voice continued. Someone checked in tonight. I opened the reservation software. Every occupied room appeared exactly where it should. 101, 102, 103, 104. Nothing higher than 213. No, I said.
No one checked in to 214. A pause. Then the voice whispered, They always do. Click. Dead. 5 minutes later, headlights rolled into the parking lot. A dusty pickup truck. Middle-aged man. Leather jacket. He came into the lobby carrying only a backpack. You got a room? Absolutely. I handed him the registration form. Name, Daniel Mercer. One night, room 208. As I programmed the keycard, he glanced toward the hallway leading to the guest rooms. Question. Yeah? What happened to room 214? The words hit harder than they should have. What do you mean? My GPS said my reservation was for 214. We don't have one. He frowned. That's weird. He shrugged, took his key, and disappeared into the darkness outside. I watched him walk toward the second floor, toward the end of the building, toward where room 214 should have been, but wasn't. He stopped, turned left, then vanished. Not around a corner, not into another room, just gone. Like someone had erased him between one blink and the next. I ran outside. The parking lot was empty except for his truck. The second floor walkway stretched above me beneath flickering yellow lights. Room 210, blank wall, no door, no stairs, nothing beyond it except open desert. I climbed the stairs anyway. The concrete was still warm from the day's heat. I walked to the end, placed my hand against the wall beyond room 113. Solid cinder block, no hidden doorway, no outline, nothing. Then, a telephone began ringing. On the other side of the wall. 1 ring, 2, 3. I froze. There couldn't be a room behind it. The ringing continued, then stopped. A second later, every light in the motel went out. The entire property disappeared into absolute darkness, and from somewhere only a few feet away, I heard a quiet knock. 3 slow taps from the other side of the wall. Then a voice, barely louder than a whisper. Ethan. It knew my name. And it wasn't asking me to come in. It was asking me to come back.
He didn't smile. Instead, he slid a yellow legal pad toward me. What time did the power go out? I froze. 2:14. He nodded once. I figured. You knew? I know when it happens. Happens? He looked toward the hallway leading to the guest rooms. Did you hear it? Hear what? The knocking. I didn't answer. Carl's face lost what little color it had. So you did. You need to tell me what's going on. Instead of answering, he unlocked a drawer beneath the counter. From inside, he removed an old leather binder. Its edges were cracked from age. The pages inside had turned yellow. This motel opened in 1958. He said quietly. Every night manager has written something down. He handed it to me. The first entry was dated June 4th, 1958. The handwriting was neat. Guest reported hearing telephone ringing in room 214. Architect confirmed building contains only 213 rooms. I turned another page. 1961. A woman insisted her husband never came back after checking in to 214. Reservation records show room 208. 1968. Telephone received call from extension 214 at exactly 2:14 a.m. 1977. Guest claimed someone asked for a wedding ring lost 23 years earlier. 1989. Employee resigned after answering repeated calls from non-existent room. 1996. Never answer if caller ID reads 214. 2004. Do not acknowledge the guest. 2015. If the wall becomes cold, leave immediately. The entries continued for nearly 70 years. Every decade, every manager, every night clerk, different handwriting, same room, same time, same warning. I closed the binder. What is the guest? Carl looked genuinely afraid. I don't know. That's not good enough. No, it isn't. He rubbed his face. But I know what it wants. What? He met my eyes. What you've lost. The lobby phone rang. Both of us looked at it. Caller ID 214. Carl didn't move. Neither did I. The ringing continued. 1, 2, 3, 4. Carl finally picked up. He pressed the speaker button. Neither of us spoke. For several seconds there was only silence. Then, Carl. The voice sounded exactly as it had to me. Calm, patient, almost gentle. You still have my photograph. Carl's breathing stopped. I burned it. No, you kept it. Carl whispered something I couldn't hear. What photograph? I asked. He ignored me. The voice continued. It wasn't yours to lose. Click. The call ended. Carl slowly lowered the receiver. His hands were shaking. What photograph? He stared toward the dark hallway. My daughter. I waited. He swallowed. Emily disappeared 21 years ago. I'm sorry. So was everyone else. His laugh sounded hollow. They searched for weeks. No body? He shook his head. Nothing. He looked down at the counter. I had one picture left. His voice cracked. 1. He opened his wallet. Inside was an empty plastic sleeve.
The silence between us grew unbearable. I never told anyone, he whispered. I thought maybe. He couldn't finish. At exactly 2:14, the hallway lights flickered. Every guest room phone rang simultaneously. The sound exploded through the motel. Dozens of telephones, all ringing together, one impossible chorus echoing through the building. Guests opened their doors, confused, annoyed. Some answered, some didn't. A woman from room 110 hurried into the lobby, carrying her cordless receiver. Is this some kind of prank? What happened? She looked pale. The person on the phone. What did they say? She stared directly at me. They asked me to return my mother's voice. Carl closed his eyes. Oh no. Another guest stumbled downstairs, an elderly truck driver. He looked terrified. It knew about my dog. What? It said, Rusty still waits where I left him. He collapsed into one of the lobby chairs. A young couple entered next. The woman was crying uncontrollably. He asked for our baby blanket. What baby blanket? The one, she looked at her husband, the one we lost before. Neither of them finished the sentence. Carl whispered, It's collecting. I turned to him. What does that mean? His face had become almost gray. It remembers everything. Every forgotten object, every unfinished goodbye, every regret, every promise broken, every piece of someone's life left behind. Then, from somewhere beyond room 213, a door slowly opened, even though there wasn't supposed to be one, and a warm yellow light spilled into the darkness of the second-floor hallway. The light spilling through the impossible doorway wasn't bright. It was warm, soft, like the glow from a bedside lamp left on for someone who was supposed to come home. Every guest in the lobby fell silent. The ringing phones stopped all at once. No click, no gradual fade, just silence. Carl grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt. "Don't look inside." "What?" "If you see the room," his voice barely rose above a whisper, "it starts remembering you." That sentence didn't make any sense. Unfortunately, almost nothing that had happened over the last 24 hours did. The elderly truck driver suddenly stood. His face had gone blank, not frightened, empty, like someone listening to a distant voice no one else could hear. "I forgot my keys," he murmured. His wife frowned. "Harold, what are you talking about?" "They're waiting for me." He walked toward the lobby door. Nobody could stop him. It wasn't because he was moving fast. It was because everyone hesitated for just 1 second, and that second was enough. By the time we reached the parking lot, Harold was already climbing the second-floor walkway toward the end of the building, toward room 213, toward the place where the impossible doorway now stood open. "Carl!" "I know." We sprinted after him. The desert wind had returned, carrying dust across the parking lot, but something felt wrong about it. The air smelled old, not dusty, old, like forgotten paper, like clothes sealed inside an attic for decades. Harold stepped onto the second-floor walkway. The golden light washed across his face. He smiled. It wasn't relief. It wasn't happiness. It was recognition. "Oh," he whispered, "I remember now." Carl stopped dead. "No." Harold took another step. "I left it here." "What did you leave?" I shouted. He turned toward me. Tears streamed down his weathered face. "My little girl's laugh."
Everything inside me froze. Harold wasn't looking at us anymore. He was looking into the room. I thought I lost it after the funeral. Another step. It's been waiting all this time. Carl lunged forward. He grabbed Harold by the shoulders and yanked him backward with surprising strength. The instant Harold crossed the invisible threshold, the doorway vanished. The light disappeared. The wall became solid concrete again. Harold collapsed onto the walkway, sobbing uncontrollably. "I heard her," he cried. "She was only 6 again." Back inside the lobby, nobody spoke for several minutes. Harold's wife held him while he trembled. The young couple sat together in silence. Neither of them had let go of each other's hands since the phones rang. Carl locked the front door, then every window. Then he pulled the blinds shut. Only after checking each one twice did he finally sit across from me. "I never wanted you involved. You should have told me." I tried. "No." I stared at the old leather binder. "You warned me not to answer calls from 214. "I didn't think you'd answer. I work the front desk." "I know." For a long time, neither of us said anything. Finally, I asked the question that had been growing in the back of my mind. "What exactly is the guest?" Carl rubbed his tired eyes. "I've spent 23 years asking that. And I've got theories. I'm listening." He leaned back. "I don't think it's a ghost. No? I think it's memory." I frowned. "What?" "Not your memories." He looked toward the dark hallway. "Everyone's." Carl told me something no newspaper had ever reported. Before the motel was built, there had been another building, a boarding house. Travelers stayed there during the 1930s when the highway first became popular. Then, one summer, the owner disappeared. No fire, No bodies, no signs of violence, just gone. Guests, staff, owner, everyone. The boarding house stood empty for years before finally being demolished. When construction crews built the Desert Crest Motel, one room refused to stay gone. The blueprints never showed it, Carl said. The inspectors never found it. But people kept reporting it. Exactly. I looked toward the hallway again. So room 214 doesn't belong to the motel. A chill crept down my spine. Then where does it belong? Carl answered without hesitation. Where forgotten things wait. At 3:07 a.m., the lobby bell rang. Neither of us had seen anyone come in. A woman stood at the counter, mid-30s, long brown coat despite the summer heat, dark hair, no luggage, no car outside. "I'm checking in." Carl looked confused. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you come in." She smiled politely. "I've been here." He opened the reservation system. "I don't seem to have... My reservation is under Eleanor. No last name, just Eleanor." Carl searched. Nothing. "I'm sorry." She nodded. "I know." She wasn't surprised. She looked around the lobby as though she'd visited countless times before. Then her eyes settled on me. "You answered." A cold wave swept through my body. "Excuse me?" "The phone." Her smile faded. "You shouldn't have done that." Carl quietly asked, "Have you stayed here before?" She looked at him with genuine sympathy. "No." Then she corrected herself.
Not yet. Before either of us could respond, the lobby lights dimmed. Just slightly. Not enough to plunge us into darkness, just enough for every shadow in the room to deepen. Eleanor turned toward the hallway. "He's awake." My heart pounded. "You know the guest?" She nodded. "I've been looking for him." Carl whispered, "Who are you?" Instead of answering, she reached into her coat pocket. She placed something on the counter. An old brass room key. Not a key card, a real key. Attached to it, a tarnished metal tag. Carl slowly backed away. "Where did you get that?" "My father." "What?" "He worked here." Carl frowned. "I've owned this motel for 23 years. He worked here before you." She looked at the key. He disappeared. Silence filled the room. "My mother always said he checked into the last room." She looked toward the hallway and never checked out. I couldn't stop staring at the key. It looked old enough to belong to another era. Its edges had been worn smooth by decades of use. Eleanor slid it toward me. "The door won't open unless someone it remembers is holding this." I didn't touch it. "What happens if it opens?" She met my eyes. "You find what you've lost." I swallowed. "And the price?" Her expression turned solemn. "It asks what you're willing to leave behind instead." At that exact moment, the lobby phone rang again. The display showed only 3 numbers. This time, none of us moved to answer it. The phone continued to ring. None of us reached for it. After the 6th ring, it stopped on its own. The lobby settled into an uneasy silence. Eleanor rested her hand on the old brass key marked 214. "My father answered that phone," she said quietly. "He thought he was helping a guest. The next morning, there was no record he ever worked here. My mother remembered him. I remembered him. But everyone else, it was as if his life had been erased from the motel." Carl stared at her. "That's why the binder exists," he whispered. "Every manager wrote things down so the next one would remember." Eleanor nodded. "The guest doesn't steal people. It keeps what they're willing to abandon." I frowned. "What does that mean?"
It remembers every lost thing, every object, every promise, every regret. But sometimes people become so desperate to reclaim what they've lost that they offer something even more valuable in return. She looked directly at me. You answered its call. Now it knows your name. The hallway lights flickered once, then again. A faint outline appeared beyond room 137. Not a full doorway, just the suggestion of one. The brass key in Eleanor's hand grew warm. It won't stay open long, she said. Carl shook his head. No one goes in. I have to, I heard myself say. Carl looked at me in disbelief. Ethan, don't! I need to know what this thing is. He sighed, then reached into the drawer beneath the counter. From inside, he removed the leather binder. If one of us doesn't come back, he said, placing it in my hands, don't let this disappear. Together, Eleanor and I climbed the stairs. The desert wind had gone completely still. The impossible doorway slowly emerged from the concrete, lit by the same warm amber glow we'd seen before. Eleanor inserted the brass key. There was no lock. Still, the key turned. The door opened inward without a sound. Inside wasn't a motel room. It was impossible. Rows of shelves stretched farther than I could see. Each shelf held ordinary things: a child's red mitten, a cracked wristwatch, a wedding ring, a faded baseball cap, a school notebook, a pair of reading glasses. Thousands, no, millions. Every object looked loved. Every object looked forgotten. Small paper tags hung from each one. Not prices, names, dates, places.
"This," I whispered, "is where lost things wait," Eleanor finished. A calm voice echoed through the room. "You came back." I couldn't see anyone, only the voice. "I never asked you to fear me." The shelves seemed to breathe around us. "You asked people to return what they'd lost," I said. "I asked them to remember." The voice held no anger, only patience. People leave pieces of themselves behind every day. They forget promises, they bury grief, they abandon hope. I keep what they cannot carry. Eleanor stepped forward. "My father." A long silence followed. Then one shelf slid gently outward. Resting upon it was a simple pocket watch. Inside its cover was a photograph of a smiling man holding a little girl. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "My dad," the voice answered. "He never stopped loving you." She carefully picked up the watch. Nothing else happened. No trap, no punishment, only quiet. Then another shelf moved. A small cardboard box appeared in front of me. Inside lay a faded blue marble. I hadn't seen one like it since I was 9 years old. Suddenly I remembered. My younger brother and I had fought over it. The day after, he died in a car accident. For years I'd convinced myself I'd forgotten the marble, but I hadn't. I'd buried the memory because it hurt too much. The voice spoke again. "You believed you lost the marble." I nodded. "What you truly lost was forgiveness." Tears blurred my vision, not because of the marble, because I realized I'd spent nearly 20 years blaming myself for something no child could have prevented. Slowly, I closed the box. "I don't need to take it." The room grew brighter. "You remember," the voice said. "That's enough." Around us, the shelves began to fade. The doorway behind us reappeared. Eleanor still held her father's watch. She looked at me. "Can we leave?" "Yes." The voice sounded almost relieved. "You were never meant to stay."
As we stepped back through the doorway, I looked over my shoulder one last time. For the briefest moment, I thought I saw someone standing between the shelves. Not a monster, not a ghost, just the silhouette of a traveler waiting beside an old motel window. Before I could focus, the room vanished. The wall returned. Room 214 was gone. Morning arrived with the first streaks of sunlight over the desert. The motel looked ordinary again. Guests checked out, coffee brewed, cars rolled onto the old highway. Carl met us in the lobby. "You made it." Eleanor opened the pocket watch. The photograph inside was still there. Carl stared at it for a long moment. "I remember him," he whispered. "So do I." It was the first time he'd ever said those words. A month later, the motel was quieter than it had ever been. No strange calls, no missing reservations, no impossible door. One afternoon, contractors arrived to renovate the second floor. When they measured the building, one of them frowned. "That's odd." "What?" "The outside wall is 12 feet longer than the inside." They measured again, same result. There was empty space inside the building that no blueprint could explain. Carl simply smiled. "Leave it." They did. I stayed another year before moving on. Sometimes people still ask me why I kept the night shift for so long. I tell them the truth. Because every now and then, someone walks into a roadside motel carrying far more than luggage. They're carrying grief, regret, love they never got to say out loud, things they think are gone forever. And maybe, somewhere beyond an ordinary concrete wall, there is still a quiet room that keeps them safe until someone is finally ready to remember. Room 214 never checked out. It never belonged to the motel. It belonged to every traveler who believed that something truly loved could ever be completely lost.